This is the second gate of Kammasaka Zen, known as Rising Sun. This is Dharma Talk 7. It's an addition that I put on to the end. It's about the second ox-herding picture and how it interconnects with the concept of impermanence. So the second ox-herding picture, titled Seeing the Tracks, is an essential step in the Zen Buddhist progress in the ox-herding pictures, which are a series of illustrations that depict the journey of the practitioner in the search for the true self. And the true self is symbolized by the ox. The second image, which portrays the practitioner seeing the tracks of the ox, it carries a significance not only in the terms of the practice of Zen, but also in its connection to the Zen Buddhist concept of impermanence, known in Sanskrit as anicca. The interplay between these two themes, it provides a valuable lens through which to understand the deeper layers of the Buddhist philosophy and how the practitioner's journey can unfold. Now, these ox-herding pictures, they are a powerful visual metaphor that portrays the practitioner's awakening and the gradual process towards self-realization. Now, these images originating in Chinese Chan, or Zen version of Chinese version of Zen, trace the stages of a monk or lay practitioner's journey from the state of ignorance to enlightened understanding. Each of the 10 pictures provides a evocative and symbolic portrayal of key moments in the realization of the true self and in the dissolution of the ego. So in this second picture, Seeing the Tracks, it's a pivotal moment in the series. Following the initial stage of searching for the ox, it is the pivotal stage. And it's in this picture the practitioner begins to recognize signs of the ox's presence, particularly through the tracks that it leaves behind itself. It symbolizes the first glimmer of understanding or insight that appears during one's quest for the truth. The image captures the practitioner who has been searching for the ox, or the ox being the true nature, or we might call our Buddha nature, and then noticing the tracks, or the tracks left behind by the ox as it moves through the world. So these tracks are not only the ox itself, but are simply also markers of its existence, which can lead the practitioner closer to the realization of the nature of their own mind. And then it's at this particular stage that the practitioner is still not directly in contact with the ox, but the awareness of its presence begins to dawn. And the tracks represent the first insight into the truth, the initial realization that there really is something beyond the ordinary perception of self. It's like a a hint of the deeper reality that lies hidden behind the veil of the ego. And in many ways, seeing the tracks reflects the early stages of a spiritual practitioner's progress, when they begin to glimpse the truth through fleeting moments of understanding, even though they have not yet fully realized it. So, in exploring the connection between this picture and the concept of impermanence, it is important first to understand what impermanence means, particularly within the Buddhist way of thinking. So impermanence, anicca, it's one of the three marks of existence we talk about in Buddhism. The other two being suffering, known as dukkha, and non-self, known as anatta. And in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha, all phenomena in the world, whether material or mental, are subject to change. He said nothing is fixed or permanent. And the law of impermanence suggests that all things arise, they exist for a period of time, and then they simply pass away. This is the fundamental nature of reality. So impermanence applies not only to external phenomena, but also to internal experiences, internal emotions, and maybe even one's sense of self-identity. And then from this particular perspective, seeing the tracks is a metaphor for the practitioner's first encounter with this concept of impermanence. Impermanence, maybe even in their own practice. And even the tracks of the ox, which are visible, are yet not permanent. They hint at the elusive nature of truth. The tracks may be clear for a moment, but they will eventually fade. Just as all phenomena in life are simply subject to the continual process of change. And the realization that the axis tracks do not remain in their original form speaks directly to the impermanence of all things. Even the very sign of spiritual awakening, such as the recognition of these tracks, are transient. They are fleeting. They are in a constant state of flux. But the practitioner, now aware of the tracks, begins to understand that the truth they seek is not a static object, but is an object to be grasped. It's not an object to be grasped or held onto, but something that is constantly in motion, beyond the boundaries of impermanence. And this insight into the fleeting nature of truth, or even of spiritual experiences, begins to dissolve any attachment to fixed views or even rigid expectations. So, the practitioner's understanding of impermanence deepens with the realization that the path to awareness or awakeness is not about achieving some permanent state of peace or clarity. It's about learning to live with change and uncertainty in a fluid, dynamic world. And as the practitioner begins to track the ox, they may even feel a sense of accomplishment, believing they are getting closer to the goal. However, the lesson of impermanence, which is unveiled in the second ox herding picture, is that all steps on the path are provisional. They're temporary, and they are always subject to change. Because the tracks are merely signs pointing towards something greater, but they're not the ultimate goal. So the ox itself, which symbolises the true self or our Buddha nature, is never fixed and always beyond the grasp of the mind. Because the practitioner must let go of any attachment to the tracks or any sense of permanence associated with the search for the true self. And it's in this sense the second picture serves as a reminder of that journey towards awakening. It's never about arriving. It's never about arriving at a permanent destination or attaining a final goal. It's unchanging truth. And the recognition of impermanence challenges the practitioner to move beyond the ego's desire for a stable, concrete self and to accept the transient nature of all things. It is the very process of seeing and understanding the tracks, rather than the goal of simply finding the ox, that may bring the practitioner closer to an awakened state, an awareness, and an enlightened understanding. Therefore, this concept of impermanence, it also ties into the practice of mindfulness, which is central to both Zen and the broader Buddhist tradition. Because mindfulness encourages us to observe the present moment without attachment, to witness our changing nature of our thoughts and our emotions and our experiences, and to do so without clinging to them. So just as the tracks appear, so do our thoughts and our feelings. They arise, they linger for a moment, or maybe longer, but then they fade away. So in the practice of Zen, one learns not to hold on to one experience, but to simply witness it as it is, knowing it is impermanent and it will change. Therefore, the second ox herding picture can thus be seen as an allegory for the deeper understanding of impermanence. The practitioner's search for the ox is analogous to the pursuit of understanding in life. And the recognition of the tracks, it simply symbolises the first insight to the true nature of reality. That everything is in a state of flux, and that nothing can be permanently grasped. So the tracks are not the destination, but they are important markers for the journey along the way, showing that the journey itself is the key to understanding. Moreover, seeing the tracks can also hint at the role of samsara, the cycle of birth, death and rebirth that can occur in the practitioner's spiritual path. In the Buddha's teachings, samsara is seen as a realm of suffering, driven by attachment to impermanent phenomena. The act of recognizing the tracks, yet not fully seeing the ox, reflects the practitioner's movement from ignorance towards understanding. The tracks are reminders of the transient nature of life, but they're not the end goal. They simply lead the way towards liberation from the cycle of samsara. And as the practitioner moves forward in their journey, as depicted in these pictures, they will come to realize that the ox itself is not separate from the practitioner. The true self, or Buddha nature, is not something to be found outside oneself, but it is simply inherent in all beings. And the path is one of direct experience, where each step reveals a new insight. But none of these steps should be mistaken for the final destination. This realization is a part of the process of awakening, where the practitioner learns, or gradually learns, to let go of fixed concepts and attachments to permanent truth. So, to conclude, in the second ox herding picture, seeing the tracks, yes, it offers insight into Buddha's understanding of impermanence. The tracks left behind the ox symbolises the first glimmer of realization that all phenomena, including even spiritual insights, they're simply impermanent, and they're also ever-changing, dynamic, fluid. And the practitioner's awareness of the tracks marks the beginning of their journey towards the understanding of the transient nature of reality, which is a key aspect on the path. And as the practitioner deepens their insight into impermanence, they come to realize that the true nature of reality is not something to be grasped or fixed, but something that is ever-changing, fluid, and beyond the ego's control. Now, the tracks may disappear, just as all things eventually do. But the journey itself, guided by the wisdom of impermanence, is what ultimately leads to the realization of the true self. And that, my friends, is in the connection between the second ox-herding picture and the concept of impermanence. Thank you for listening to me today.